Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out my channel. If we haven't met yet, my name is Joanne Bartolome. I am an owner of an agency in Edmonton, but also helping out across the world when it comes to marketing, branding, and social media. Today I wanted to talk about 4 things that I really learned when scaling my business. Now, there are a lot of tools online right now when it comes to starting your business, but I find that starting is probably one of the easiest things once you get everything in line. Is just really going out there and starting. But the struggle for me was scaling. Now that you had started, what will you do to grow and scale the company so that way you can actually grow and scale yourself when it comes to revenue, and also growing and scaling your life and living your life with purpose. Now, before I get into this video, I would very much appreciate if you did subscribe. It means the absolute world as a small business owner, and I would appreciate if you checked out other videos because that would mean the absolute world as well. Okay, let's get right into it. The top things that I really wish I knew when I started scaling my business. The first tip that I would say is to not get caught up with the details and to let go of that perfectionist mindset. I don't know about you guys, but when I had first started, I had control of everything. I had no team. I was the only solopreneur, so I obviously was doing everything. And there was a certain level of perfectionism that came with doing everything because I was the business owner. Now, you kind of had to let go of this idea of perfection because there simply is not enough time in the day when you are trying to scale. And what I have found is something called the PDSA cycle. But I didn't even know that that was what it was called when I first started out as a business owner. I just thought that this is kind of the cycle that I use, but then now there's a term for it, where you would plan something, you would do it, you would test out in the market, and then you would create action and you would plan it again. The idea of this mindset, instead of planning all the time with this perfectionist mindset, you go out there and you put your unique selling point, and you also put your least viable product or your lowest product, the minimum viable product that you're able to use out into the market and see how it performs, test it, checks it, and you keep going that way. That way you're not creating a perfect product, a perfect service. You're just going out there and doing and learning by doing. And that's probably one of those things that as an entrepreneur, I really had to learn if I wanted to scale. I had to let go of the idea that 100% has to be perfect, or perfect the way that I would do it, or find ways to explain how I would do it. So if I wanted something done a certain way, I had to invest my time into standard operating procedures. I had to invest my time into training. I had to invest my time to make sure that when it's done right. So letting go of that perfectionist mindset and making sure that you let go of some of those, small little details that really actually don't matter at the end of the day. The second piece that I wish I knew when I had started my business was the idea of comparison. When I was going out there and seeing how other people were scaling, how my competitors are growing their business, I started to shy away from my mission, vision, and values. And as an entrepreneur, you need to stand up for your mission, vision, values because only you will know what that is. And when it comes to comparison, I always thought about it like this. What was the person willing to sacrifice in order to get closer towards their goal? And even for myself, looking inwards at myself, what am I willing to sacrifice to get myself closer to the goal? So is it sacrificing my weekends? Is it sacrificing time with my fiance? Is it sacrificing, dollars? So do I have to put a larger investment up front in order to scale? There was a lot of sacrifice that has to be made. And I know that we talk about this hustle culture, but with the hustle culture, I find that we forget to talk about the sacrifice. You sacrifice time, you sacrifice resources, you sacrifice different things in order to get towards the goal. And a revenue goal shouldn't be the driving factor for you. In fact, it should be your mission, vision, and values. So comparing myself actually detrimented my business because I thought to myself, okay, if that's how they did it, they went and got a loan, crowdfunding campaign, whatever that may be. I didn't use my head and realize, okay, is that something that I would do? Is that something that aligns with my values? And that, I think, really is important when you're trying to scale, is knowing how you're going to scale and how you're going to measure success. What does success look like for you? Is it dollars or is it something else? And really defining those goals first before going out there and trying to scale without that measurable goal in mind. The third piece of advice I would say would be to focus on what you can control. There's a lot of things going on in this world, and when people are trying to scale, they're of course trying to blame multiple things like the economy, etc. But what's super surprising is that during some downturn, some amazing businesses tend to start up, just like Uber, for example, started up during a downturn. And I think that is a motivating factor to remember, is that whatever is going on externally that you can't control, focus on what you can control in your business. For myself, I am huge on processes and procedures and standard operating procedures like SOPs to make sure that our flow is very, very strategic. And that flow I found saved us time. So that's something that I can control. Now, what happens on the other end, let's say a client doesn't get back to us, whatever, that's up to them. But what can I control? I can control automating my responses so that it will remind them to follow up. I can control creating a client portal so that way they can upload things easier. I can control the fact that we can accept credit cards so that way I'm not waiting on cash coming in and making it easier for the client. So focusing on what you can control, and that's probably the biggest lesson of entrepreneurship, is figuring it out. Figuring it out and making sure that you can do this, I think, is probably one of the things when it came to scaling is so important. I see a lot of people taking courses right now. Courses are very popular, do not get me wrong. Thousands and thousands of dollars spent in courses. But one thing I wish these courses said is, yes, it's important to learn. Yes, it's important to learn how to scale and execute. But sometimes you kind of just have to go out there and do it. I think that we spend so much time with that perfectionist mindset. We spend so much time thinking to ourselves, we have to get it right now, that we forget that maybe a lean startup approach of just going out there, trying it, testing it, and then going out there, doing it again and testing it will probably get you closer towards a goal because you're doing rather than consuming the content of how to do it. So that is one thing I wish I knew, was stop focusing so much on the education side of it. As much as it is important, of course, business coaches, etc., courses when it comes to launching. At the same time too, don't spend so much time on it because that's time you can use to execute. The fourth piece of advice, and this is probably the most important advice because I find that as women entrepreneurs, there was a statistic that said that women entrepreneurs are least likely to go get financial loans. That is crazy for me, that we are least likely to go out to get financial loans and more likely to use our personal money to start up a business. And that is not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of us, of course, want to make sure that we have cash coming in through the door, that we want to make sure that we actually have the revenue to justify going out there and spending it. But if there's one thing I learned, especially doing research into the tech industry or any other industry, is that cash really is useful. That a lot of us do have line of credits, a lot of us do have loans, but it's such a taboo topic that we don't actually talk about it, that if you're going to grow, you're going to scale, being realistic with the financials, being realistic that maybe it's okay if you want to go out and get cash, that you want to go put yourself out there with investors, that is 100% okay. And that's something that I think isn't so much talked about in the realm of the connections that I have with regards to women entrepreneurship, is that we talk about marketing, we talk about sales, but we don't talk about financials because it's so uncomfortable. But I find that if we start making these conversations, we start talking about the fact that, yes, I had to get a loan in order to scale my business. I had to go out there and do a crowdfunding campaign. I had to go out there and get a line of credit. These are things that I know I will be able to pay off strategically when money starts coming in, but taking that leap of faith of, yes, going out there and getting it and just being strategic how you spend it is something that doesn't get talked about. Now, don't get me wrong, if you haven't proven your concept, if you are out there and just kind of winging it, yeah, absolutely, it could be a risky business to go into of trying to get a loan. However, when I had put together a business plan, when I had already launched the business with my own personal money, when I had already started seeing clients coming in and getting their feedback, I already knew as a business owner that if I had more money to invest, I could be so much further. So when it's growing or scaling your company, be comfortable talking about numbers. Be comfortable talking about your debt to equity ratio. Be comfortable talking about revenue and your cost of goods sold and knowing those terms. And I promise you that it will be totally worth it. Okay, those are the 4 things I wish I knew when it came to growing and scaling the business. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and thank you all again for watching.